Thank you for watching Power Talk this week. And we're talking about something that is important, and you hear a lot about it and will understand it better. Financial and digital inclusion and the financial ecosystem, not just in Kenya, but in the region. What is all of that? What does it mean? And why is it important? Let's talk about what Mastercard is doing in that regard. And joining me on Power Talk today is Sharia Ali, who's a Senior Vice President and Country Manager for East Africa and Indian Ocean Islands at Mastercard. Thank you for being with us on Power Talk.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
So we'll talk about what financial and digital inclusion means, because, you know, it's been a common phrase, but before that, I'd like to hear from you what your thoughts are around, or your reflections on the financial ecosystem in Kenya and the region.
Yeah. So I think, Kenya is a very dynamic financial ecosystem, if you think about it. You know, it's the birthplace of mobile money, as we all know. And I believe the world has learned a lot from Kenya. And that has proliferated not just in Kenya, but outside of Kenya into East Africa. Mobile money has become the status quo. And so the world took a page from that notebook, and it's now proliferated all over the place. However, when you think about the ecosystem itself, there are opportunities and there are both challenges as well. So if you think about the opportunities, you can look at the fact that there is financial inclusion, which is a challenge to a tune of about 41% of the ecosystem is today excluded in East Africa, right? So that's a big set. When you're talking about 500 million people, that's a big set, which today does not have access to accounts or credit or any other financial services. So I think when you think of that as an opportunity, and at the same time put behind it the challenges, which are around, all of the countries in East Africa have high debt payment ratios that we need to abide by. There's economic inequality that's quite blatant in our faces, and inflation, which is a very dangerous combination. And therefore, we need to be really smart about our innovative, creative minds and ideation as to what solutions are the right solutions and for which segments. And that's a challenge that Mastercard's taken on very bravely.
Yeah, not a one-size-fits-all. So when we talk about, those who are excluded, because you mentioned 41% of the population, that's huge. But what does it mean when we say they are excluded?
So it's basically having access from a geographical expanse perspective. Do I have something in my vicinity that connects me to a financial system? Right? That's number one. Number two is, from an economics perspective, the affordability of it.
Right.
Number three is the relevance of it. If I'm a farmer and you're not tailoring solutions for me in the agri space, then really, why would I want to come and give you my business? Or if I'm an SME with very short or small yields, how do I manage tax? Right? Because I've got a business to run. And if majority of my income is going to run into taxation brackets, then I'm in trouble. So we need to actually listen to these segments, understand the relevance, tailor the solutions to meet their needs, and then test and learn. It is a process. It's never you design a solution and every solution has its cycle. In our 70 years of history, Mastercard's learned that very well. And we disrupt ourselves intentionally.
Okay. Yeah. And so let's talk about Mastercard then. What's your mandate in the region?
So our mandate is, look, we have a global promise. 1 billion people to be financially included globally, of which 50 million MSMEs, 25 million women entrepreneurs. That's our goal. Now, if 41% of East Africa is today financially excluded, then that's exactly who we're working for. So that's number one. Number two, SMEs are the backbone of any economy, especially when you look at East Africa. It is that fact is not lost upon any of us. So then the question is, well, what makes the SME? Today, let's take Kenya, 8.4 million MSMEs. Yeah. How many are informal, formalized kind of status? Yeah. It's only 1.4. Why is that? Is it tax? Is it something else? Is it because the financial solutions are not relevant to them? So that's where Mastercard comes in and says, okay, we've heard the voice. Let's come out with Community Pass for the agri sector, where the farmers are looking for access to inputs, access to marketplaces, get credit on the back of those data points. That's number one. Number two, it would be for SMEs, low-cost acceptance. Can I do digital transactions which don't take a big fee chunk out of my transaction and I lose that, right? So with QR Pay by Link and Tap on Phone solutions that Mastercard has innovated and brought across the globe, those are the solutions that we're seeing that there's a demand for.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of those initiatives. And I know you've talked about tailor-making them, and some of them are global. So let's talk specifically about some of those and how that's working.
Sure. So I think that's very interesting, and that's a very good question. A US solution or a Europe solution or a GCC solution is not going to work in East Africa. Just the dynamics are very different. The economic price points are very different. So in August last year, we looked at all of that and we said, okay, fine, let's bring in QR, let's bring in Tap on Phone. But then, will the price points work? And we said, it's not going to work. Because already mobile money is, let's say, at 0.5% MDR or merchant rate. So we said, okay, let's drop our conventional interchange from 1.12% to 0.5%.
Wow.
For Tap on Phone, we said, let's go further down and drop it to 0.25%. And for QR, let's go all guns blazing 0%. And the idea was not that we were 100% confident that, yes, this is going to fire. The idea was that this is the right decision, which may not be globally our status quo in terms of what we do, but for East Africa, it's the right decision. So we took that brave step, and we have seen tremendous results on the back of that.
Yeah, and let's talk about some of those. Maybe explain to our viewers about the QR code and maybe Tap on Phone, how those work, and therefore the impact you've seen of that.
Sure. So if you think about it, your conventional POS machine, that machine costs you about $400. Right? That you go to your big shops here, you'll see that, right? Now, that machine is not purpose fit when you talk about the segment that we are referring to here in the agri space and the SME space.
Okay.
So then the question is there a lighter lift? And the lighter lift comes in the shape of QR. Okay. It's a sticker. And Central Bank of Kenya has done a great job, standardized that QR, right? Bank of Tanzania has done a great job, standardized that QR. So we can take that same standardized QR, plug it across the market at all the SMEs, and all a traveler, let's say a tourist coming into the country, can go scan it with their camera. It'll open up a page. We have something which is a global first called Click to Pay. All you do is you press one button and your credentials are populated and you do the transaction.
Okay.
So it's that ease and interoperability at the right price point that does the job for us.
Interesting. And the Tap on Phone?
So the Tap on Phone is like, we've gone to grocery stores, right? And there's a queue.
Yes.
And sometimes you have to do OTPs and you have to check if the money is received and all of that.
Yes.
Now, fast forward. What is the average median age of East African is 19 years.
19, yeah.
Okay. Now, do you think that the future generation has the patience to be standing there for, let's say, 1 minute and 20 seconds doing that transaction?
Patience for 1 minute.
Right.
Okay.
Now look at what I'm wearing right now.
Right. Yeah.
This is not just a wedding ring. This would be a wedding ring which has now got a chip inside of it, which I just bring close to a machine. It taps on the machine, contactless manner, and the transaction just flows through under 4,500 shillings.
Okay, I wonder if we can. Did we? Yes, we have that shot. So, what is this?
So this is a NFC enabled. It's a chip. There is a contactless payment that's embedded in this.
Okay.
So your card credentials, which obviously you carry in a form of a plastic or a virtual card, gets tokenized in a very safe and secure way. And so let's say our kids are going to school, right? They have to buy lunch.
Yeah.
Phones are not allowed. Cards are not allowed. Well, then what can they do? They can take an armband, a Kenyan flag colored armband that has the token inside of it. And that token, simply you bring it close to an NFC-enabled acceptance machine, and the payment happens, and you're done in less than even 20 seconds, right? So I think it's preparing ourselves for the future.
Yes.
I think this is just an example of that. But there are many other use cases. This is just one of them for below 4,500 shillings. As you go up, there are other ways in which you can make the payment with your phone. Two-factor authentication. In the West, we've tested with the smiles. We've all got beautiful smiles here in East Africa, right? Yeah. Wouldn't it be amazing that you're going out of a grocery store, you look at a camera, you smile,
and you make a payment.
That's your credential, and the payment goes through. So we're bringing all of that into Africa, and we're going to customize it so that it becomes relevant, fun, and future fit.
And this spring is already in testing here in Kenya?
So good news is it's live with 2 leading banks, which I can't disclose at this stage, but there are 2 leading banks who you will be hearing from very soon. And we have done live transactions in the market. And the expressions of the merchants is priceless. Because
I mean,
because they're like, is this magic?
No, it certainly looks like it. I mean, so it looks like there's a lot of exciting things that are happening. But more importantly, Sharia, talk to us about the impact that this is having on the lives, you know, of the people that Mastercard serves.
Yeah. So I think, look, from our perspective, we have a segment-based strategy. And when you say segment-based strategy, you have to look at, okay, if I'm talking to a farmer, the needs are very different, right? So if I think that a smartphone-based solution is going to work for a farmer, I'm dreaming. That's not going to happen. The farmer is probably used to a feature phone.
Yeah.
So a community pass type solution, which is, you know, USSD enabled, where I can still do my codes, I can still do my transaction, is probably the right fit at this stage for the farmer. So what we do is we made Community Pass actually get customized for that use case, right? So that's one. Now when you go to the SMEs, it's a totally different ballgame. Now let's say if I'm a small shop around the corner, I would prefer that I, you know, have a very low cost acceptance QR, where I don't have to buy a machine and rent it and fix it and all of that. I just have a sticker. That sticker gets scanned, and whoever wants to pay me can just pay me in an interoperable way, and I can receive my funds very quickly. Yeah. So we are not trying to put solutions out there just because we have a solution on the shelf. It's the idea is to look at the solution, customize it, price it right, and make sure the user experience is very smooth and convenient. Okay,
yeah, and that's interesting because what works for farmers doesn't necessarily work for retail traders, for instance. And so it's seeing what works for each segment. So, I mean, you've opened our eyes about, you know, what's exciting, you know, what exists out there. So when you look to the future, you know, what do you see, Sharia, in terms of even some partnerships or initiatives that Mastercard is working on, and what the ecosystem now will look like in days to come? I mean, you know, it was shocking that you said no one's patient to wait in a queue for 1:30. I mean, clearly that's where our level of patience has come to. That's you know, that's where we are now. But where do you see the future, even for Mastercard, with some of the partnerships? What's new? What's cooking?
You know, it's shocking. If you look at how many people visit or tourists go to Paris, you know, the number is about 90 million a year. And then you look at Kenya, with its amazing bush and beach and, you know, trekking and all kinds of nature sports that you could do, culture, people, beautiful. And how many people come? 2 million. Right, and that also, you know, is because of capacity constraints, because of lack of information. So what is Mastercard doing? We are working with Kenya Tourism Board. We are offering, recently we did 20% off on all KQ flights coming in, so attracting people to come in. We said, okay, does Kenya Tourism Board need some help in terms of data? Insights. So we got that going, where they could see, okay, which tourists have a higher propensity of coming and spending in Kenya. So we got that going, right? Then we have another use case, which KCB Bank has just recently, you know, Inwa Jamii program, where we have to give social benefits out. And just over the last 3 months, 160,000 cards were issued to people who needed their pension benefits and their social benefits to be delivered from the government. So we're working with governments, we're working with parastatals, we're working with private institutions, fintechs, FIs, telcos, you name it. In fact, a very big development has recently happened with the largest acceptance player in the market, which you'll see in the next few days. Sorry, but it is so exciting because we are finding that domestic relevance and value creation is topping everything else. Today, if you have a Mastercard, you can go and actually at a Carrefour or a KFC. At Carrefour, you can save 1,000 shillings if you spend 5,000 on groceries. At KFC, you get 25% off right now on Uber Eats. Right? Glovo, 2 free deliveries. Jumia, 10% off every 15th of the month. It's not because it's cool. It's simply because today we see that inflation is there. It's hurting our pockets. Are we being relevant? Are we telling a value story to our customer. So today, even if you use any other form of payment, you must go and get a Mastercard just because it will give you value. Yeah? So we're playing on the value story, convenience story, financial inclusion is there. Partnerships is our cornerstone.
Yeah.
We can't do all of this ourselves, and we know that.
Yeah.
Yeah? And in doing all of this, how do we impact socially? Just 3-4 days ago, you may have seen it in the press, we donated 300,000 meals to Food for Education because we realized that primary schooling is for free, right? But the child doesn't go to the school because the meal is not there.
Yeah.
So I have a choice between food security and getting educated. Isn't that an unfair choice to make? And there, I believe it's not just the government's job. Private sector has to pull up and support. So in this way, Mastercard's looking at the 360 ecosystem challenges, opportunities, and how do we play a constructive, productive, and an efficient role in solving for these issues in our little humble effort.
Indeed. What a good way to end our conversation in terms of providing value to different segments and making sure that there's solutions that are relevant to different groups. Thank you for speaking with us, Sharia Ali, who's the Senior Vice President and Country Manager for East Africa and Indian Ocean Islands at Mastercard, talking about the initiatives and efforts in terms of making lives easier and bringing more into the financial ecosystem and how that is changing and impacting lives in Kenya and in the region. That's Power Talk this week.